Hello and welcome to Studio 415.
On today's show, you will hear from the superintendent on how and why he decides to delay or close the school for weather.
You'll see how a broken water pipe wreaked havoc in the CFC offices over winter break.
And you'll hear about cyber attacks against NACS and how the tech department is fighting them.
All of that and more coming up next.
Welcome to Studio 415. I'm Tristan Tyon.
And I'm Ben James. Every morning during the winter, students wake up and hope to see that 2-hour delay or a cancellation has been called. Many students wonder why school cancels on the day that it does.
And more importantly, why school isn't closed on other days. Studio 415 reporter Adam Spieth has more on the overall decision-making process.
December through March, conditions outside can impact the school schedule by either making it unsafe to stand outside or by making roads difficult to navigate. I had the chance to meet with the superintendent to discover why he closes school and why he doesn't. Many students do not know this, but the decision to cancel or delay is made entirely based off of the buses and the students waiting for them, not the student drivers. It is the job of Superintendent Chris Himsel to determine if the conditions outside are appropriate and to take action by canceling or delaying school. Himsel says that the decision is made based on whether or not buses can navigate the roads, not whether or not students can.
And the reason for that is because every teenager's driving skill is different. The vehicle they have, the tire conditions are different. The brakes, rear-wheel drive versus four-wheel drive, all those things make a difference on whether or not their vehicle is safe to drive. And that's a decision between the teenager and the parent.
The overall decision is solely made for the safety of the students who ride the buses due to the fact that they are the most vulnerable to the weather conditions. Temperature is a big factor for getting the buses started and keeping students safe while waiting at bus stops.
But in essence, if it's 20 below or warmer wind chills, we are probably going to go to school. If it's 30 below or colder wind chills, there's a really good chance that we will delay or close.
Even though Himsel is the one who makes the final call, he has a lot of help in making the decision. He explains that there are often multiple people required to survey the entire area of the school district, and often conditions in one place are different than those in another.
We'll have 2, 3, sometimes 4 people driving roads. Our school district is 108 square miles, so it is possible that a subdivision near DuPont and Coldwater Road is fine, but areas in Lake Township near Arcola are not. And it can be vice versa as well.
Himsel says that hindsight is always 20/20, and if he could remake his decisions, most would involve going to school as opposed to delaying or canceling. Maybe that's just how the students want it. For Studio 415, I'm Adam Spieth.
Over winter break, the administration of the Carroll Freshman Center received an unwelcome surprise.
A large number of the CFC front offices had flooded with at least 3 inches of standing water. Studio 415 reporter Andrew Schuler has some inside information on the causes and effects of this winter surprise.
For most of Carroll High School, winter break is a time of relaxation, but for the custodial staff and the CFC administration, their winter break was cut short. On January 1st, Carroll High School experienced a small power outage. Due to the power outage and extreme temperatures, the air heating unit above the teacher's lounge in the Carroll Freshman Center failed. A number of pipes in the unit froze, expanded, and eventually burst. This caused a large amount of water to gush out of the ceiling, sending ceiling tiles and roof insulation flying. The water went undiscovered for long enough that there are over 3 inches of standing water that filled the front office.
My office took the brunt of the damage, so everything on my desk was lost. So my personal calendar, a lot of pictures my kids had drawn. In my office, I have things on the walls that I had framed. Because of the amount of water that came down and the force with which it did come down, a lot of those pictures were destroyed, and those are not replaceable. So that makes me most sad.
Most of the Freshman Center administration didn't find out about the flooding until January 2nd, only 2 days before students were due back in school.
We received a text message from Mrs. Pickett stating that the office had flooded and to be prepared to basically move our things.
This gave the administration very little time to prepare the new offices. With the help of both the tech department and the custodial staff, the Freshman Center administration was prepared for the return of students on January 4th. The office secretaries were moved into the book room. The guidance counselors, along with Mrs. Pickett and Mr. Yates, were moved into storage rooms in the CFC temporarily.
Tuesday, they moved us into our book room, and with the help of the tech department and custodial staff, we just worked all day Tuesday getting everything as organized as we could for the students that came back then on Thursday.
The flooding in the CSC caused a time of distress for administrators and secretaries, but after a week of refurbishing, they're all moved back in. For Studio 415, I'm Andrew Schuler.
It was almost 3 weeks ago when the internet at NACS suddenly went down and students' online work had stopped.
This downage was the result of a cyber attack. Studio 415 reporter Chris Jones has more for us.
On Wednesday, January 10th, NACS suffered a cyber attack causing the internet to stop working. The firewall that's normally put in place to block these attacks was somehow bypassed, leaving the network without secure protection. Any and all Google sites were down the day of the attack and continued to be for multiple days. Students were unable to access Canvas and other official sites during the initial downage. Even at home, students were unable to access any sites. This caused the inability to complete homework assignments at home on their laptops.
I had to do a Spanish project at home, and while I was there, I realized that I couldn't access the internet, neither could my sister, so we had to figure out a way to do it at school the next day.
The cause of the server issues were due to a directed denial of service attack, also known as a DDoS. To understand what this attack is, try imagining that the network is like a castle, and a firewall is like a giant wall protecting your castle with revolving doors, allowing some information to get in.
A DDoS would then be like 1,000 sumo wrestlers jamming up all of your revolving doors, preventing nobody else to get into your castle. Obviously, you don't want 1,000 sumo wrestlers in your castle.
Currently, NACS uses Lightspeed to filter out the network. It stops sites that attempt to spread any virus or malware. The firewall that protects NACS from cyber attacks is run from a server in the main data center. It protects all of the internet at every school in NACS. In the near future, the firewall is going to be updated to help defend against any further attacks now and in the future. With the new firewall being created, NACS may continue to have internet issues until it is updated. For Studio 415, I'm Chris Jones.
With nearly 10 musical programs offered at Carroll, sometimes these groups may get overlooked.
However, 3 jazz groups have recently become popular in the music department. Studio 415 reporter Calvin Cornett joins us in the studio with more.
The jazz program is a place for students who may not want to be in a traditional band, but still desire to produce music as a part of a group. I talked to various members of Jazz 1, 2, and 3 and got their take on how the jazz programs have affected their lives. Jazz programs have been wildly successful in the past. Jazz 1 is a class available here at Carroll that requires an audition to be able to perform in the group. Despite this ensemble being state champion 2 years ago and state runner-up last year, one member says that winning isn't the group's main goal.
Our goals are basically to play the best of our ability and to have fun doing it. I mean, we do have competitions starting second semester, but we're pretty laid back about it. If we win, we're really happy about that, but that's not our main focus.
Jazz 1 was created in order to allow students to experience a different style of music than that of classical. But due to limited availability, a Jazz 2 was created. Jazz 2 is a group for musicians who aspire to be in Jazz 1, but may still be developing their skills. Many of these students are a part of the group as a form of training for Jazz 1.
So Jazz 2 will play music that's maybe not introductory or basic level, but it's not quite advanced jazz literature. You could think of it more like an intermediate jazz ensemble.
Due to the recent increase in interest in the jazz program here at Carroll, Jazz 3 was created last year. The group consists of primarily freshmen or students new to the jazz style. However, one member of the new group claims that both groups are of similar ability.
I think that both groups are pretty decent, but Jazz 2 is more seniors and juniors, and Jazz 3 is more sophomores and freshmen.
There has been some demand for these two groups to become classes available here at Carroll in a similar fashion to that of Jazz 1. However, due to scheduling conflicts between the two band directors at the school, turning this idea into a reality has been a struggle. Until then, members of 2 and 3 continue to practice every Monday and Wednesday for about 2 hours and attend competitions nearly every weekend.
Jazz music is something that is just fun. I think most students that play it, they just get a kick out of it. It's enjoyable, it's toe tapping, it's sophisticated but not in a super heady way. So I think it's easy for kids to adapt to and like to do.
Competitions for these 3 groups have already begun with the Purdue Jazz Festival happening around 2 weeks ago. An annual performance is held later in the year to give the student body one last chance to see the groups.
The big culmination of our work throughout the entire year is at the end of the year in May we have what we call our Jazz Cafe, where all of our jazz groups will play. There's a meal that's provided, and it's usually really well attended and a great time.
Although the groups are mostly filled for this year, Jazz 2 and 3 are still in need of trombone players. If you have any experience or any interest, please contact Hazel or Fraser in the music department. For Studio 415, I'm Calvin Cornett.
That's all we have for today. Thanks for watching.
If you have any story ideas that you'd like to see covered, mention them to any of the students in the credits or Mr. Johnston.
For all of us here at Studio 415, have a great week, Carroll.